Welcome to the 138th broadcast of the thet-roh Show. It's your host, Keith. Got John with me. Now,
Good morning, folks.
how you doing, bud? All right.
Fine.
What we're going to be talking about today is the Graham case. There's a guy named Graham down in Texas. We're going to be going over this case because we've found some very interesting things. And obviously, we've been attacked by what I call the Mecca circular crowd that are under the influence of MI6 as to, so what are you going to do with Graham case? How are you going to do it? Yeah, all this kind of crap. But that's normal coming from them. There's nothing ever positive that comes out of that crew. Either way, what we're looking at here is something extremely interesting that's going to help a lot of people, even internationally, and a lot of other countries at the same time. You have to remember, we get a lot of hits from other countries. Some of those within the million that we get per week listeners are from a lot of different countries. So we're going to talk about what's going on within the United Nations, and I'm going to say that very specifically, within the United Nations as it pertains to the court system within the United Nations. So let's get started on this. Graham came to us, I don't know, about a year and a half ago. And decent guy, no issues. He learned fairly quickly everything that he wanted to learn. And he has a personal past dealing with women and a child, a boy, a woman, and a child. And I don't know the particulars about that. I didn't really get into that, but it's the bottom line is it's the same old story. Man owes woman child support type deal. And what happened was is his, I think it was his 11-year-old son, called him, and there was some kind of order or something in place where he couldn't see him, or his ex-girlfriend, who happens to be a paralegal, by the way, wouldn't let him see his son. This was about what, three months ago, right, John? It's about 3 months ago.
About three months, maybe a little more.
Okay. So he goes and his son tries to contact him, or contacts him through a text. Dad, come get me. 11-year-old boy's on the street. He's run away from home. He's run away from his mom. He says, I want to come live with you. And I can't take it anymore at that house. So Graham goes to pick him up. The next thing we know, he's in jail. Now, from the time he picked him up and what happened between the time he picked him up and he went to jail, we don't know. Doesn't really matter. The fact is he ended up in jail. He ended up in 3 different counties because I think there was a complaint filed by the woman against him. And that's where the case started, where this particular case started.
Yes, sir. And by the way, this is not hearsay we're telling either, because I've got 69 pages of text between the boy and their daddy.
Right. We have evidence of everything we're talking about here, so
Yes, we do.
We can get it. 69 texts, and he did, in fact, was contacting his dad, so because he was tired of his mother, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, I don't know if he was not able to see the mother or see the boy or not. I don't know anything about that part. But what I do know is he could have brought if there was any kind of restriction from him seeing his son, other than just the mother doing it. I'm going to withhold your son until you pay me. You know how it goes, right? And then it comes back. Well, you're not letting me see my son because, so I'm not going to pay you. See, that's how this argument starts. I'm not going to pay you because you're not letting me see my son, and according to our agreement. And then the other side comes back and says, well, I'm not going to let you see your son because you're not paying. Well, that's an argument nobody can win. It is what, blah, 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 blah. So he could have, I don't know, he could have brought a deputy down there. I don't know what he could have done different. Could have done differently as far as this all was concerned. However, apparently there was a warrant put out for him because he doesn't have the child support thing going or up to date from 2017. So you don't want to do that, especially in this system, and especially with U.S. women, because they love to put their ex-husbands and ex-boyfriends in jail over that. They just love doing it. It's a thing. So he ends up going in there. So we do a tort claim for him about, I don't know, about a month and a half later, 2 months.
Yes, sir. About 3 to 4 weeks afterwards,
3 or 4
after he was
weeks. Okay.
locked up.
All right.
Yep.
All right. So we do a tort claim for him. And that was this alien tort claim right here. And we started saying, look, now notice in this tort claim has nothing to do with his son and nothing to do with what's going on with this case. Nothing. We're not discussing the boy, the woman, the whole child support thing, the whole deal. We're not discussing that. We're just discussing the fact that in the Equal Rights or the Bill of Rights of the Texas Constitution, it says that all free men, when they form a social compact, right here. You can go look it up. It's in the Texas Constitution. Have equal rights, and no man or set of men is entitled to exclusive separate public emoluments, privileges, but in consideration of public services. Okay, which means no lawyers or separate emoluments, exclusive separate emoluments. That gets rid of the lawyers, doesn't it, John?
Yes, sir, it does. Completely. Because the
Because,
lawyers now are entering into a private contract.
right, and they have exclusive separate public emoluments, which means they have exclusive uh, privileges. You can say it's privileged class of people. All right. It was designed to get rid of that. Not the one where it says foreign titles of nobility, where everybody thinks that that's what got rid of the lawyers. That's the whole BS. Okay. It's actually this section here that gets rid of the lawyers. Or their type of system that they set up. We'll show you what they did. Now, trustee of the person, we go into this. Texas, he said, the particular section of the state of Texas Constitution has been written since the first Constitution of the state of Texas. So we didn't change anything. We didn't, it's not something that was outdated. They're supposed to be under this same Constitution today, but they're not doing that. So the trustee is not entitled to any rights, privileges, emoluments, nor any other obligations under the legislative department of the state of Texas. Why? Because he never signed what? The separate social compact that creates the Texas Constitution and creates Article 1, the Bill of Rights, equal rights, and also creates the legislative department. Because all authority is derived from the people in the world. If the people don't form it, it's not there. It's very simple. So the judicial department has been noticed several times of the aforementioned facts. However, the judicial department refuses to release the trustee and continues to use pain compliance to assume jurisdiction with extremely high bonds and debts claimed by foreign agencies created by the same legislative department. Okay? That's what they did. We don't need to go in there. It's a Mason's legislative manual. You can find this in the tort claims at the American Herald. It's right under state of Texas. We put this tort claim in there. So it says it is legally impossible to assume jurisdiction over a trustee when the trustee is not a party to in the form of a social compact with the legislative department of the state of Texas, which are going, oops, got a problem. Now the lawyers are going, oh crap, we got a problem. Huge problem. because we don't have a state. And they've been using the state of Texas as a front because they pretty much did away with the state of Texas in 1948. It operates in name only. That's when the communists took over in 1948. That was when the lawyers signed the Bar Treaty, okay, with the United Nations. The Judicial Department of the state of Texas is practicing law without a license when enforcing violations of basic legislative procedures, and has further made laws without a permanent population of people as signatories of a social compact that would create the legislative department. The legislative department of the state of Texas, operating in name only, is required to adhere to all sections of the law of nations as it pertains to the social compacts, wherein it is also written within the state of Texas Constitution. Social compact started in the law of nations, and started before that, but it was written in the law of nations, and that's the law of nations was actually what started the Revolutionary War, because people woke up and said, hey man, we're getting screwed over here, and we just didn't know it. The trustee must literally sign a social compact in order to be obligated to submit to the legislative department of the state of Texas, which in turn would create obligations on the part of the trustee wherein rights are derived. So what we're saying here is this, folks. What's happening is that you have never signed a social compact. When you have not signed a social compact, you are given a bill, okay, to pay a bill, but you have no rights that goes along with that obligation. So they're handing you all of the obligations with no rights. There's no benefits involved. Is anybody in the country getting a what do you call that? A dividend check every year based on the GDP? That's the gross domestic product, or the gross national product, GNP. Did anybody realize that you're supposed to get a dividend check every year, and that's why it's written in the IRS form when you fill it out? I think it's section 8 or 9. And that's what you're supposed to pay in taxes right there, not what you made all year. Your any tax obligation would be under the dividend check that you get every year. But how many people get a dividend check?
None that I've ever heard of.
I've only heard of one, and he just happened to have taken an oath and affirmation to a municipality and became a county commissioner. And he gets a check every year. And he has to pay taxes on the dividends. That's a normal tax when it comes to that. But nobody's ever accepted that, and nobody's ever received that. So how is it that they're obligated to do anything the legislature tells them when none of them are in contract with said legislature? And if that's the case, what was the population of the state of Texas? About 28 million or so, just off the top of my head.
It was 29 million at this point.
Okay, 29 million. That's 29 million counts of slavery against the current state of Texas legislature, the legislative department. That's 29 million counts of slavery. Oops. Okay, so the trustee must literally sign a social compact. The United Nations and the United States cannot compact with a state that is without a permanent population. Therefore, any assumed obligations against residents of something that does not legally exist is notwithstanding anywhere in the world. In other words, we're picking on we're picking at the state of Texas because they just happen to be dealing with Graham, and we have a lot of evidence. We're going to show you another document here, which is hilarious. They just pretty much admit everything we're saying. So basically, the United Nations is looking at a lawsuit because the United States doesn't have a permanent population of 320 million. It's got over 300 million cases of slavery. That's what it's got. That's what's really going on. But the trustee cannot be obligated, governed, held in contempt of, gain any rights, nor can be held obligated to something that does not legally exist in accordance with its own constitution that it purports to legally exist and do business in name only. Well, folks, This actually went into their civil side. We just put it in there. We know the civil side basically doesn't legally exist, but we're going to play like it does. Okay, we're just going to play along in La La Land, and we'll play like it all exists. That's just a play. Okay, doesn't legally exist, but it's a play. We'll act like it does, just to because we don't want to mess around with somebody's fictional creation or what they believe is reality. Because they didn't really have any votes. They didn't really have any of that stuff because the two political parties are the ones that decide who goes in to each of these chairs and offices that they've created, that the lawyers created. By the way, lawyers done all of it. The lawyers created every bit of it. The people really didn't have anything to do with it. The people never voted for any of it. They just created as they go. That was 1948. That's what the Communist Party does. They are the Communist Party. They're also a totalitarian party and a totalitarian dictatorship, and we've talked about that before on thet-roh. So that went in there. So here we have the what was it? We have the court transcript. So what we're going to do is grab that and we'll show it to you. There we go. All right. So this is basically the proceedings. And this is the court transcript. Anybody knows what that is? This is page 4. That's the reporter's record. Okay. So they can't say that we made it up and all that junk. All right. So read a little bit of this. All right. Here we go. All right. There's the court. That's the judge going, all right. The court is calling at this time cause number blah, blah, blah. Okay. And this is styled in the interest of Lucas Bradford Lasik. This is the kid that wanted to leave his mother. So this is all it started this whole BS. This particular BS. The BS started a long time ago. I have this matter set today for hearing. Apparently, the judge set it for hearing. I've got 3 live pleadings as opposed to dead ones. The first amended petition to modify the parent-child relationship, a motion to revoke the suspension of sentence, and a motion to release funds. Ms. Aim Fenner. Oh, by the way, the motion to release funds. What happened is his dad. We told him to stay the hell out of it. What happened was Graham's dad goes in and tries to bond him out. Stupid. Nobody told him to do that. He just jumped in because he's the concerned father. They use that family crap against you, by the way. And he goes in and does it. So right when he does it, during the arrest, and what's the go-to charge? Resisting arrest, right? Or assaulting an officer. That's the go-to charge when they want to screw with you. You could be sitting there not resisting, just putting your hands behind your back and everything else, and then you go into the car and go, "You assaulted me." Cops do that all the time. Because why? They work for the Communist Party. And they work for lawyers. Okay? So that's the go-to charge. Whenever I hear that, I go, go-to charge. That's what they did. They're getting ready to screw them over. It's kind of like you never done any drugs in your lifetime. Then all of a sudden there's a ounce of cocaine in your under your dashboard. Well, come on. Everybody knows who planted that, right? Not to say all of them plant it. I'm just saying this is what happens. So when they do the go-to charge, which is assault, the father goes in and tries to bond him out. Well, right when he gets out, or right when he starts getting out, they go in and slam him with an indictment coming from a grand jury for assault against a cop on the arrest day. Well, they didn't even have any time to put a grand jury together because I think it was within a couple of days. But there's nothing. Again, I've seen this before. lawyers will make up grand juries. They always do. Not always, but most of the time they do. They'll make up grand juries. They'll just write it on paper because that's what they do. So, Ms. Am Fenner is present with her attorney of record this morning. Ms. Bell and Mr. Lasik is present as well. For record purposes, I initially called this proceeding back on May 29th, 2019. To hear some of these motions, at that point in time, there was an oral motion to recuse, okay, made by Mr. Lasik. I ceased the proceedings at that time, and now I'm going to tell you why. Because Mr. Lasik knows the judge from when they were kids. They used to fight all the time. I don't know if one beat up the other or did whatever, but the story is on the street is the judge's family did like the Lasik family, because the Lasik family pretty much did things the way they wanted to and have been very, single-minded, and this pissed off the judge's family. So there's a thing against him right away because the judge's family has already judged him. All right, that's just how it is. All right, I ceased the proceedings at the time, forwarded the matter to the administrative judge for the 8th Administrative Judicial Region. Right here. See this, folks? There's no such thing. That's outside of the state of Texas. Because the state of Texas Constitution never created regions. If it's not in the Constitution, it doesn't exist. So where did he go? He went to the United Nations, because the United Nations is the one that created regions. There is no state of Texas. It's only in name. It's in name only. And actually, we have it in trust, the original one. And we also have the government of the United States of America has the state of Texas in trust and the meets and bounds. We kept them to keep the state there in case the people wanted to come back and operate it. So right there, what did we say? He's the United Nations. Judge Evans entered an order denying the oral motion to recuse. Okay, so he went to another judge. This is the biggest joke we've ever seen in our lives. He knows the judge. He's got to recuse. He's got no choice. There's also a pre-existing non-due process judgment against his family from the other family. The families don't get along. On June 11, 2019, since the filing, the order denying Mr. Lasik has filed an alien tort claim. The Attorney General's office has filed an answer to the alien tort claim. There was an affidavit Mr. Lasik filed in the record, and eventually a bench warrant was issued by this court to the sheriff of Eastland County, bringing Mr. Lasik before this court. He's being held up there on unrelated matters. Okay? Now, guess what? Alien tort claim, also unrelated matter to this case, because did we talk about his son? Did we talk about the mother of the child? Did anybody hear anything about that? No. We were talking about the very existence and exposing the fact that this whole court system that they have in Texas, operating in the state of Texas, is a complete scam. And we proved it. And they didn't like that at all. So, why is he bringing this up? The alien tort claim? Oh, I don't know. Let's go to reality. Whenever you file a civil case, it has nothing to do with a criminal case. Just ask O.J. Simpson. He was found not guilty in a criminal case. Then they went and sued him in a civil case it was a separate case. One did not relate to the other in any way, shape, or form. Because why? All people are innocent till proven guilty. Innocent till proven guilty. What does the Communist Party do? Meaning the lawyers, you're guilty till proven innocent. So they skip civil court, skip any evidence that needs to be put in there. under the rules of evidence and go right to district court. That way they can control the evidence. Now, what does that mean? It means that the United Nations legislature, state of Texas legislature, are making political statutes. They've combined politics, or the political party, Communist Party, with the statutes in one. And that's why they're very careful about the wording. You'll hear that all the time. Well, we got to make sure, the wording is correct. Oh, you got to make sure that your politics are enforced within the statute. That's what you want. Your communist parties political will is enforced in the statute. Now, think about it this way. The Communist Party also gets into everybody's contracts. How many people have contracts where it says, including attorney's fees? Now, have anybody ever known any other industry in the world that says that in a contract, they are guaranteed their fee? Not one contract that you'll see. That's not even a part of the contract. They're not even a party to the contract, but yet they come in, and in the contract they write in, including attorney's fees. You're going to pay all court costs, and that's the judge's fee, and attorney's fees. That's a pretty good deal when you're able to get a whole generation of people to write that crap in their contract when they don't have to. There's nothing required. And attorneys are funny. When I was working with them, when I was working with one that was dealing with a title to some property, he's an underwriter, and he was doing a title search and trying to clean it up. At one time, we wrote something. He said, well, we need to get this lien off of it. So we said, okay, we'll write this document here. And we sent it off to him. It was signed and everything. They said, no, the wording is not correct. So I said, why don't you guys write down what you want? This is after the third time. And then we'll just sign it. How about that? They sent back the document that they wanted us to sign. And it was the exact same wording. I said, oh, okay, so we're dealing with Orwellian. 2 + 2 is 4. But I can't say 2 + 2 is 4 until you tell me whether 2 + 2 is 4 or not. That's a lawyer. That's a judge. That's how the system operates. Okay, you could write the same exact thing. Matter of fact, you could have a trust that just kicks their ass. But it's no good unless they say it's good.
Sounds to me like, Keith, that they bring it up when you make a suggestion by stating the facts. They have to accept and acknowledge the fact that it does exist the way you stated it.
Right.
That's the reason they sent you the exact document back. Yes, we agree to it. That's all they said.
Okay. Okay, so here's some of the thing. Here's Miss Bell. The ones that okay, whenever you see people in the courtroom and they're really kissing the judge's ass, it means that they're on the right. They're on the side of the judge where they know they're going to get all the benefits of what the judge is going to tell you. So always realize that when it's always kiss that judge's ass that day, and you'll see it. And you'll notice, yes, Your Honor, whatever you say, Your Honor, we're here just to be so respectful towards you, and you are just a man, and that's all there is to it, and whatever you say, okay? When you see guys like that, that means they were in the back office somewhere, and they're getting ready to screw the other guy. That's what's getting ready to happen. Seen it 100 times. So they go, yes, Your Honor. Mr. Lasik, are you ready to proceed? Mr. Lasik, how am I supposed to be ready to proceed whenever I was not aware that this was taking place today? So you're saying you're not ready to proceed? How could I be? That's Mr. Lasik. The response from the Attorney General's office from what you said cited was not filed correctly from what it sounded like to me. Because what they did was, once again, Graham's father doesn't listen to instructions, and he goes in and he files that suit that's within the with attaching it to this case. Why? Because his father's stupid. Doesn't understand what the hell he's doing. He doesn't listen to anybody. Okay, so they went back, got it straightened out the next day to get put into a civil case. All right? A civil case separate from this other case. It had nothing to do with the other case. Completely separate. So the Attorney General's answer to the alien tort claim was in the form of a general denial, demanding strict proof. Now, how are you going to demand strict proof? Okay, this is what happens when you catch somebody. When you're sitting there explaining to them what they did, how they did it, and everything else, and especially if they're in high offices, they always say what? Prove it. Well, you're going to have to prove that. Really? Demanding strict proof. Well, how can you demand a negative? Or how can you demand something that doesn't exist? Where's the social compact and when did I sign it? When did anybody sign it in the state of Texas? Under your regime, your commie regime. Okay? This is the reason why communism is illegal. Because it doesn't have a permanent population. There are no people there. Nobody's in a social compact. The government is created above them, and a government is basically telling them what to do. Okay? It was filed on June 21st, 2019, 10 days after the tort claim was filed. So my understanding is that was not a response. It's not under the appropriate action. That's right. It wasn't, because it was under a separate one. There's a separate case going on. So what does this guy do, this judge? He reschedules this and redoes this, flips this around, flips that around, and he's trying to get this done. Okay? And, Your Honor, we're not here on the alien tort claim today. As far as I understand it, it's beside the point. That was Ms. Bell. They even said that. The court, well, is the AG or anyone from the AG's office present? That's what he's trying to get done. He's trying to get rid of that tort claim. He's trying to pull it into this case and get rid of it. Even the Attorney General in the response said or tried to connect that alien tort claim to this case. And it wasn't there. It was supposed to be in a separate civil case, which was corrected in all 3 counties, by the way. This alien tort claim was filed in 3 separate counties. It says they are. Ms. Conyers said if you needed her, she could come in, Your Honor. He says, all right. He says, I'm going to take these up in order, and if I get to it, that's going to be one of them. Last things I deal with, and I'll bring the AG in. Okay? Why is a judge subpoenaing an AG? Isn't that supposed to be one of the movements? One of the people in the court supposed to do, well, we'll subpoena the AG. Why is a judge trying to pull that freaking tort claim into that case? And he's continually trying. That's because you got to remember, the other judge that ordered him not to be recused, which he had no authority to do, of which this judge would either is supposed to be on his own recusal, not somebody else's. But no, he had to go to the United Nations and see if he needed to be recused. And then, of course, one of the communist judges up in the 8th administrative blah blah region said, well, the Communist Party has not given that order, so therefore it's denied. And Mr. Lasik is not within the Communist Party, so since he's not within it, nor is he an officer within the Communist Party, he is not authorized to make those orders, and therefore his request is denied. There's only one party in the world that forces association. That's the Communist Party. There's only one party in the world that murders and basically mass murders people, and that's the Communist Party. In 1948, they took over. They overthrew the United States, the corporation, the company. They overthrew it, took it over, and in 1973 they began their mass executions in the matter of over 60 million. It's just this time it just happened to be in the doctor's office where they do abortions. See, they're doing their mass executions. They always do. They just did it under everybody's nose. So, that being said, that's what's happening down in the UN. It just happens to open up a office under a totalitarian dictatorship in the World Communist Revolution and the World Communist Party. They're open up and they're doing business in the meets and bounds of the state of Texas. The totalitarian party is very hard and to expose, and a totalitarian, and I'll show you exactly why. Okay, this is in their titles, Title 8, Aliens and Nationality. It says the term totalitarian party means an organization which advocates the establishment in the United States a totalitarian dictatorship or totalitarianism. The terms totalitarian dictatorship and totalitarianism mean and refer to systems of government not representative in fact, which means they were never voted in. Nobody voted for them, nobody did anything. And you'll notice this, lawyers are not voted in, but yet they seem to run everything. Where's the freaking, where does Trump go when he's got trouble? It's to his lawyers. So who runs that office? Lawyers do. All right. The existence of a single political party organized on a dictatorial basis, so close an identity between such party and its policies and the governmental policies of the country in which it exists, that the party and the government constitute an indistinguishable unit and the forcible suppression of opposition to such party. So if you disagree with what they're talking about as far as this type of hate speech, you disagree with that, that's called forcible suppression of opposition to such party. You're fighting the totalitarian party and the communist party. Okay, same difference. The term world communism means, this is where the totalitarian party is, right here, means a revolutionary movement, the purpose of which is to establish eventually a communist totalitarian dictatorship in any or all the countries of the world through the medium of an international coordinated communist political movement. And where is the internationally coordinated communist political movement? That is all of the bar associations, because they're running everything. If you can't make a business decision without talking to a lawyer, guess who runs your country and your business? That's just the way it is. Why did this judge go to a region? That's because it was under the United Nations. Who runs the United Nations? The lawyers do. That's just, they're the ones that approve everything. In other words, you could write them a document back with the same wording. They write one back to you, the same wording, and it's okay because they said it was okay. And believe me, when I was dealing with that, and I was dealing with the Montana thing, that's exactly what happened. I watched them, was there. So when what's happening here is you're seeing this now. What's happening with Facebook? Same thing. It's lawyers that are doing it. You always got to find the lawyer. You find the lawyer, you'll find the problem. He's the one that's actually doing it. He's going to put his little puppet manager up front, and the puppet manager is going to say, yeah, well, I made this policy. And said, no, he didn't, because it was the lawyer that actually had him do it. He didn't do any of that. Who runs the military? Lawyers do. They took that over in the 80s. I was in the military at the time when they took it over. And you could see massive amounts of differences in everything that was going on. when the lawyers got involved. Because all of a sudden, a soldier could sue a sergeant, or a soldier could sue an officer. All of a sudden, out of thin air. One day, you were in the military, subject to orders. This next day, you could sue them if you didn't like the order. That blew my mind, blew many guys' minds. Wow, okay. I didn't see that coming. It's the same way they got into everything. Lawyers started getting into everything. Agriculture. Why do you think the FDA is all screwed up? It's because lawyers are running it. Why do you think Washington's all corrupt? Lawyers are running it. Lawyers they determine whether you're guilty or not. But most of the time in their mind, they're going to try to prove you're guilty because they've already decided that you are, regardless. So they just have to move the evidence around in their district court, not in the civil court where you can put anything in there that needs to be put in there that's relative to the case. They skip that completely and go right to the district court. Every single case is like that, folks. They might say, oh, this CV. No, it's not CV. A judge can't decide what evidence goes in a civil case. He can't hide that because there's rules of civil procedure. If he does, it's called judicial misconduct. But they're not in a judicial court, are they? They're in the judiciary. So, John, we talked about that yesterday.
Yes, sir, I believe we did.
So internationally, we're talking what? Trafficking persons.
That's right.
We're talking about trafficking in persons here. The same international law that the lawyers wrote, but probably didn't expect anybody to figure out that they're the ones actually doing it. Because what's the best way to hide a crime? Come out publicly and say, I'm against murder and I want the capital punishment for murderers, and then go murder. No one will ever suspect that you murdered somebody. Well, you just spoke out against it publicly and said that the people that murder other people should be killed. So they wouldn't suspect them. So that's what the lawyers do. They come out with trafficking in persons. They're not talking about people that traffic children and persons across from southern Mexico, or the southern border. They're not talking about that. It can be done on paper. Who determined you were a U.S. citizen? Lawyers did. Because why? Because religiously, they are idol worshipers. The state is their God. And they control the God. If they control the God, they control your life. That's why you have those kind of religions. You see, the Catholics control Jesus because he's the vicar of the anointed one, the vicar of Christ. So they want to speak for him. But out of the 1,000 videos of people that said that they went to heaven and came back, and all of them basically described the same thing and the same type of experiences, what's missing, folks? Not one of them mentioned a pope. That's something that should tell you something. They all said they met Jesus and described him basically the same way on each one. None of these people knew each other, so they couldn't have a coordinated effort. They all spoke the same thing. There was actually another woman that just came out, I think it was February, that has a tattoo that says it's real because she died, and she said, came back, and what she said was, it's real. He's there. I saw him. It's all real. But guess what? She never mentioned a pope. Ever. Not one of them. That should tell you something. So if you control a people's God, you control his statements and control what he says, then you control a people. That's why there's a lot of men that are in a lot of trouble for putting words into his mouth. That's why he said, don't change anything in this book. Don't try to take over people by speaking for me. You don't have power of attorney. It's basically what he's saying. But what do lawyers do with power of attorney? You try to revoke the power of attorney, they reverse it because they have power of attorney. That's what they're claiming, which is a bullshit claim. I'll say that again. They claim power of attorney for the state. There was one judge that claimed that in Michigan that she represented the state of Michigan. Like, what? What do you mean you're representing the state of Michigan? I thought the prosecutor did that. Or does the prosecutor not have a letter of appointment representing the state of Michigan? And did he sign one or accepting and acknowledging that appointment? No, he didn't. So how can he represent a state that, number one, he's not a part of the social compact that created it, and number two, he's got the letter. He doesn't have a letter of appointment from anybody saying that he represents the state, and number three, he doesn't have any letter of acceptance and acknowledgement of that position. So how's that? Oh, that's a communist organization. The communist organization is done under a dictatorial basis, where because Graham was not a part of the Communist Party, he couldn't demand a recusal from a childhood foe that he's got. And I don't even know if Graham's whooped his ass a couple of times. I'm sure they didn't get along a lot when they were young. I don't know the details. I'm sure Graham could tell everybody. But oh no, Graham is actually incarcerated. And he had a trial on a case that had nothing to do with the case or the courtroom itself, the forum or the venue. But that's okay. You're under a totalitarian party. The judge is magic, and he can say whatever he wants. And when he says it, it's because, oh, we're going to hold you in contempt here and hold you in contempt there. Gee, not without. That's a monarch. If you read the history of contempt, has to come from a monarch. And are you saying that the United Nations is a monarch? What's going on there? I don't know. But every court that you see, folks, and every agency you're seeing today is all United Nations courts, and they're all United Nations. And I'll tell you why. Don't they hold people in jail for 6 months, John, or 90 days? So 60 to 90 days, all international, correct?
That's correct.
All right. So you've got it. If you're holding them 90 days, you hold them 6 months, 180 days in contempt. Has anybody ever been sentenced for contempt for a
Not
court
that
order?
not that I know of.
They just started making that up, about a year ago?
They just hold you in when it's over with. They turn you loose or put you back out in the court.
Right. And then they can charge the United Nations taxpayers, right?
Yep.
Okay. So everybody, by the way, folks, you're all in United Nations taxpayers. They started that years ago. And what they do is they because all the judges own the jails. So as a service, they have an interest in ownership in the jails, and so there's a service there to the public, and they hold the guy for 89 days, not a total 90, because if they did, they'd have to charge him with something, then or 180 days, and everything deals with money, the world currency. All currency is the same currency, by the way. Just let everyone know. It goes from the same bank. So the European Union, the euro, is the same as the USD. There's no difference between the two. They're all the same money. It's why? Because it's all from the same organization. Okay, so people are going to say, "What happened to Graham? What happened?" It's ongoing, folks. It's ongoing. Um, we finally, I believe the American National Union is going to be coming in and filing a case against the other union because these guys love to work with unions, the North American Union, the EU Union, all that. So why aren't other people using unions to protect their independence? Well, we do. So in that case, the original 1774 union is going to be filing, which is first in time, first in right, going to be filing against that other union based on this case. And we're going to expose all this crap to the rest of the world to warn the world that this is what's going on in your country. This is what's going on in everybody's country. These lawyers came in, and what they did was they trafficked everybody's person to a completely separate thing called purgatory. And on earth, it's called stateless. They made everybody stateless by trafficking their person into not a judicial department, to a judiciary. They used that term. That's what they did in 1789. They trafficked everybody to a judiciary. It's a private organization they created. The lawyers created themselves on paper. It has no metes and bounds. It has nothing. It's not even a state. It's not a country. They're making rules as they go. And people naturally rebel against that stuff. Now you understand why cops are being doused with water, because they know they work for the lawyers. They don't work for the people. They work for the lawyers. They report to the lawyers. They're witnesses for the lawyers. They gather evidence for the lawyers. The whole thing is set up for the lawyers, not for the people. On every constitution should read, "We the lawyers, we the attorneys, in order to establish a more perfect union. We the attorneys." But they say, "Oh, we the people." And then the attorneys sign it, and they say, "Well, we represent the people." Where is that? Where'd you get that power? You made it up out of thin air. You just assumed it. And nobody would think that you have the audacity to do that right in front of them. But you do. But you guys have got 320 million counts of trafficking in persons in the judicial side of this. Then they came up with the independence of the judiciary. That was hilarious, by the way, because that was basically declaring independence from the state legislature or anything else. Why are you guys even using state statutes? Oh, I know why. Because you wrote them to give the appearance as if that's an actual state, but you're not, and you know it, and everybody else knows it. Now everyone else knows it, because by the end of next week, another million people are going to know it, and then a million after that, and a million after that. Every decision that's been made since 1948 has been null and void. None. It's not even there, because it was all done by fraud. Social Security Administration, created by fraud. 1933 bank holiday, created by fraud. Federal Reserve System, created by fraud. Created by a totalitarian party, world communist dictatorship. A bunch of lawyers. All agreements created by fraud. Because why? Where's the fraud? No power of attorney to speak for anyone. And you still don't have any power of attorney to speak for anyone. Folks, communists are the most murdering group of people that you've ever seen in your entire life. They've already killed over 60 million children since 1973. Thousands upon thousands on top of that, with the Vietnam War, Korean War, World War I, World War II. Lawyers created all that. That was the Communist Party and totalitarian party, totalitarian dictatorship. They combined the two. Why does it seem confusing? Because a lawyer freaking did it. That's why we said before, shut down the courts, fire them all. Shut them down, because they're taking you right off the cliff with them. They're going to crash their economy that they own. By the way, the banks that they own, they're going to crash those. When they don't get their way, they crash things. And they cause suffering, starvation. Look at all the crap in the streets in Baltimore. Rats. Look at all the crap in the streets in Los Angeles. And rats. And who set that up? Lawyers did. The lawyers have complete control of the prosecution in the county or in the city. Why aren't they prosecuting that stuff? Because they're not. Because they control it. They're making it happen. And they'll blame it on something else and then come in with a solution. They caused the problem and they blame it on something else, and then there's your solution. Because they're the heroes of the day. Even though they caused the problem. To make themselves look like the heroes, to what? To remind you that you need them. They always remind you that you need them, even though they don't produce anything. They don't make any clothes. They don't produce any food. They don't do anything. All they do is take somebody else's equity. Oh, that's right. They got rid of the equity courts, didn't they? So that you couldn't fight for your equity. Huh. That is the totalitarian way, isn't it? Get rid of the equity courts. So you can't fight for your equity that you have in the house that they're getting ready to foreclose on and resell. So they steal the equity, then they steal the title, then they steal all the payments, and then they resell the house, shame you publicly. You're in a foreclosure, you suck. Right into a district court, when I've shown everybody that a civil court is who hears foreclosures, but everyone's sitting in a district court. Gee, I wonder how that happened. And can't figure out why they're losing every freaking hearing on a foreclosure. Why all their evidence is being thrown out in the street. Why is all that happening? Oh, it's because the judge is got control of all the evidence. He's not operating under rules of evidence. He's not operating under any rules. He's operating under his own conscience, which there isn't one there, under a totalitarian dictatorship and a communist party. That's why. That's why it's all happening. So, keep feeding their system. Go ahead. If you cast your pearls before swine, because there were pig farmers that started the freaking stock market, by the way, they're going to render asunder to you. And that's exactly what they're doing. You don't cast your pearls before swine. You don't give them your equity. You withhold it. They're pigs, they'll use it against you. They do every single time. Anything you want to add, John?
No, sir, not at this time that I can think of.
Okay. So, I want every cop to realize, you want to start getting respect back, start protecting the people. And quit serving the lawyers. Start serving the people. Tell the lawyers to go to hell. Because you're the only one that's making what they say matter. Because you're enforcing their totalitarian party crap on everybody. This is partly your fault. Talking to every cop out there. You guys have no right to do what you're doing by serving a private membership association and serving lawyers over and above the will of the people. The will of the people has been spoken over and over and over again. They're sick of the corruption and they're sick of the crap. They're sick of it. And they're sick of this LGBTQ crap. They're sick of all of it. And it's your lawyers that are doing it. And you cops that are out there enforcing lawyers just to so you can fill your pockets, you are just as bad. Just as evil and just as corrupt. And you are trafficking persons into a foreign court that the people have no idea what's going on. They're so confused. They're scared to death because you're scaring them to death, which is what? Domestic terrorism. by the way. Because the lawyers gave you guns and gave you the appearance of authority, which if you look at your lapel or you look at your collar, you'll see a military rank there when you're not in the military. That should tell everybody something right there, by the way. And you're attacking civilians. That's called a war crime. We would suggest that you stop it. Think about what you're doing. Maybe you won't get doused with water, because next time, if you see a lot of this, and by the way, the government of the United States of America has nothing to do with dousing cops with water. I don't know where that's coming from. Who gave that order? Probably the Democratic Party. And all this other stuff. We have remained quiet. Have you noticed that, John? He's a second witness right here. Have we done anything?
No, sir, we haven't opened our mouth or anything on that.
I haven't messed with anybody or anything. We're just sitting here watching.
Yep.
We're not saying a word about anything. I think the most that we did was we reinstated the charges against some people, but we haven't said a word about anything.
Yep.
So don't use us as your patsy. The government of the United States of America is a patsy because we're not involved in any of it. We're literally sitting and watching what's going on. We're not saying a word. We'd love to, but we're not, because the people have to learn. And when you have what happens, no matter what your intent is, if you're serving these guys directly, meaning the lawyers and the American Bar Association, which works with the other bar, the I'll remember it in a minute. If you're doing that, that's on you. It's not on anybody else. You guys are doing that. You're just doing it for a paycheck. That's messed up. And you want to sit and abuse people? You know, it comes back on you. I know. What you do comes back on you. And that's just nature, man. It has nothing to do with anything else. Nature does that. So, at any rate, folks, everybody's been warned. They see what's going on. We're going to pray for Graham, and because he was wronged on this one, regardless of if there's anything else that he's done in his lifetime, but he was wronged on this one. This is bad. His girlfriend's actually relishing what's going on, and essentially committing genocide. Because if you think about it, ladies, who's going to want to marry or have children with an American woman, with a U.S. citizen woman, if you get married and you say the wrong thing or you do the wrong thing, you're not doing exactly what that woman wants, then she divorces you, takes half your crap, and then enslaves you for the rest of your life to debt. Now, it's probably more a better idea if you go to another country and marry a woman over there, because the women here, if you think about it, ladies, this is what it looks like from an outside point of view. So you just have to deal with it. First of all, you could kill him. You could murder your. Okay, if a man's looking at a woman here in this country to marry her, say first of all, here's the things that she would or could do. She could murder your child legally, and nothing will happen to her. That's actually her right. You know, you can murder your child. So why would you want a child with them if they can murder them, right? You say the wrong thing, they could take half your crap, half of everything you ever made, and put you in debt for the rest of your life to them. Now, who would want to marry something like that? Who would want to marry someone that has that kind of power? That's a totalitarian dictator right there that has that kind of power. So the best thing to do, guys, is not marry them or nor have children with them. Because it doesn't matter what race they are in this country. They all do the same thing. So you might want to go to another country and have a child with another woman over there that doesn't do that. And that's called genocide. And that's what this woman that's going after Graham, is doing to the whole country. Because why would I have a child with any woman here if I knew that she could do that to me? I just say the wrong thing. I just have a bad day. And that woman could tear your life to pieces. Or she's just not happy with you. She gets horny and wants to go off and get somebody else, and she's not happy with you. So she divorces you, takes half your crap, puts you in debt for the rest of your life, and then goes off and messes with another guy, does the same exact thing to him. And that's true. There's a lot of women in this country that have 4 or 5 different fathers to the 4 or 5 different children they've got. And they're pulling in, putting them all in jail for no payment of support payments. And that's literally going on in this country every day. So why would we marry you when we could go to another country and marry another woman that wouldn't do that to us? That's called genocide. That legal system was set up that way. Think about it. It's the truth. You don't like it? Tough. Thanks for listening to the 138th broadcast of the T-Roh Show. We will see you next week.